Welcome to On the Road with Bill Holub podcast.
This is Bill Holub from Steam Trap Survey. This is our first podcast. We're going to be talking about steam systems, air, compressed air systems. I do steam trap surveys across USA and Canada, as well as air leak surveys.
Hi, my name is Jessica Holub through exclusive social media. I do Steam Trap Survey LLC's marketing, such as book edits, training videos, and other media. Why do we need to test steam traps?
Well, we need to test steam traps to check energy efficiency. We're checking them to see if they're failed open. They'll waste steam. We're checking to see if they're failed closed. That'll back up condensate, cause water hammer, possible wet steam process to slow down. We're also checking to make sure that they are installed correctly and working as efficiently as possible.
What is the expected annual steam trap failure rate?
Well, the Department of Energy says 11% is acceptable. What I see is up to 25%, mostly about 15 to 20. If you do energy surveys, steam trap surveys once a year, as recommended by the Department of Energy, and over a course of maybe 2 or 3 years, you can get that percentage down to between 5 and 10% fail rate.
What is the best technology to use when testing steam traps?
Well, the best is ultrasonic. The first way to check a failed steam trap, if you have the opportunity, is to do it visually, and that's when it drains to the ground. That way you can see the steam coming out, if there's no steam coming out, if there's condensate coming out, or if nothing's coming out. Second best way is ultrasonic. Ultrasonic, we're listening for the inlet sound versus the outlet sound, and that depends on the type of trap we're talking about, which we'll get into later. But for now, where the ultrasonic is giving us a sound measurements that we could determine whether or not steam is getting through that orifice. The third best way is temperature, and that's typically what facility personnel do. They check temperatures on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, or on a quarterly basis, and that just tells them basically if it's hot or not. If they're going to check with temperature, they're going to have to document the inlet temperature and the outlet temperature of each trap, write it down, so the next time they go check it, they can compare it to the current inlet and outlet temperature.
What's the benefit of using visual testing of steam traps?
Well, visual is important because what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's installed correctly. You don't want it to be installed backwards. You don't want it to be, or you do want it to be at the lowest point of whatever you're draining. You don't want the steam trap to be at the high end of the heat exchanger or the high end of the unit heater. You want to keep that at the lowest point. Another visual check is just to make sure the right type of trap is in there. Typically, you can use any type of trap for most any application, but in some cases you may want to change it due to maybe failures that are happening on a yearly basis, or just the recommended better trap for that type of application.
What's the benefit of ultrasonic testing of steam traps?
Ultrasonic, you can hear inside the steam trap. So if it's an inverted bucket trap, you'll be able to hear inverted bucket trap moving up and down, or maybe it's clanging back and forth. You'll be able to hear the steam condensate mixture. Basically, condensate is a quiet noise that you really don't often hear, but the steam you do hear, it's pretty loud. When you have steam going through a small orifice like they have in steam traps, 3/4 trap might have a 1/8 inch orifice, that steam is pretty loud. So you don't want to hear that. So inverted bucket traps, you're basically, you want to hear that thing open and close. Ultrasonic, ultrasonic is where you really see inverted buckets and thermodynamic traps, whether they can close tight or whether they just leak by when they do close, which in that case, you'd have to fail both of them.
What's the benefit of temperature testing of steam traps?
Temperature testing is kind of a quick way of determining whether the trap is hot. It also is I use temperature more for troubleshooting. I'll check on condensate lines to make sure they're hot. If they're running cold, I can kind of follow that down to see where it gets colder and colder, and maybe there's a valve shut off. And then also upstream temperatures you can see on steam traps should be at the saturated steam temperature, which, for instance, if it's 100 psi saturated steam, that's going to be about 338 degrees. And you also have to consider that there might be dust and debris on the pipe and the thickness of the pipe. So when you do test it, you might only see 300. But using temperature testing, really, you want to do the comparison month by month or quarterly by quarterly. If that 300 temperature on the inlet goes down, it could possibly mean the strainer's plugged up. If the temperature on the outlet of the steam trap goes up, that could possibly be an indication of a steam trap failure.
Thank you for joining us. Look forward to our next podcast.